Hello, seniors. This is Mr. Kimball again. It's April 22nd, and I thought I would take a little bit of time to give you some feedback on your papers for those of you that did your papers. So this video is specifically for the English for regular students and primarily focused on answering questions that are coming up about your papers. Um, so what I did is I went into your Google Classroom and I opened up the rubric document that has been posted since March 16th. And inside of that document, you notice there's several tabs there. So I'm going to click on the book review. And before I get into it too much, I am going to ask that you make sure you watch this whole video because I'm getting some of the same questions and I'm going to try to answer those questions in this video. Um, so if you have additional questions after that, then feel free to email me. But I feel like right now, I just looked at my email and there's about 6 questions that are almost identical. So I can see that they're going to start coming in as you start reading your comments and you start seeing what your grade would have been. So let me say this first. I'm fully aware that whenever I sent out that video for week 2 and how the grades were going to be calculated, I'm fully aware that a lot of you in your mind, you do your calculations and you play the little numbers game because you understand that in the grand scheme of things, um, you understand how grades are being calculated and the messages that have been sent to you from our administrators and district people. So uh, I get it. I would have done the same thing. I would have looked at those and I would have kind of done some of the manipulations. And I even had 2 students ask me that specific question, Mr. Kimball, if I only do no red ink and pass that quiz, I would still get a 7 out of 10, correct? And yeah, the answer is yes. So there are several students who I know just did not do the paper because they were okay with getting that C or even that D range. If they didn't pass, they got a 6 out of 10. And I'm fully aware of that. Okay. And I also am fully aware that some people wrote the paper just to get those 1 or 2 additional points. And maybe we're not looking for all 3 of the points. So I get it. And I totally understand it. And I am admitting I would have been in that same category when I was in high school. If this was a situation, I would have done the same thing. I would have just played the game and just did what I needed to do to make sure that I was passing for that week's work. Okay. But there are several of you who do want good feedback. You wanted to do your best, and you want real comments back regarding your paper. So that's what my goal is here. I want to make sure that I'm really addressing those of you that were trying to improve your score and you were trying to actually treat this as an academic learning moment. Okay. So I've pulled up the rubric and I ended up making a form on my end that matched this. And I had both of my computers open. I had one computer over here and another computer right in front of me. And as I was reading and writing comments on the side, I was filling out the rubric as I went for each paragraph. Now, what you need to understand is the number one comment that I wrote across the board. I even got to the point where I just copied it and pasted it. The number one comment was about the quotes and the citations. And if you look through the rubric, you'll notice that there's something in reference to quotes and citations in all paragraphs except for the connection paragraph. So even a quote from your novel would have been sufficient. So in your paragraphs where you were talking about the summary, in the paragraphs where you were talking about the positives, the paragraph that you talked about the negatives, even if you just provided a quote from the book and then had the in-text citation correct, remember the parentheses with the author's last name, and then you also had that included in your works cited page, then you would have fulfilled all requirements and not necessarily have to go and get those outside resources to help with the positives and negatives. And I know some of you are asking that question, and outside information is perfectly relevant. It's okay, but not always required. Okay, so let me go through the rubric real quickly. I want to make sure that you understand as you ask questions about your paper, make sure you've done this work first so you can see where my points matched what was going on here. I apologize, my phone was going off. I need to see what that was. So in paragraph one was all about the author background information, and you may have used some outside information from here. I know some of you just went on Amazon or you went and looked for the specific book and you got into that author's website or whatever. That would have been very appropriate to go ahead and cite that appropriately. You needed the background information, you needed reliable source information. Reliable source information to me means it's not Wikipedia or it's not the search engine title page. I really had some people that tried to put some quotes in from like Google's search engine, and it had, when I went and looked up what they had, it was literally the Google search page, and they just copied and pasted a comment that was on that initial search page. So when I say reliable source information, I mean some solid source. And then these two are kind of, I put them in the reverse order. So I need to switch those around, or I did on my form, but I didn't here. Paragraph includes correct in-text citation. So after you provided that quote, then you had those parentheses with the author's last name or the title correctly written in there. And then I did go down to your works cited page and made sure that how you listed it in the in-text, that author's last name or the title, that was actually the first thing listed in your works cited page. Remember, we've been working on that. Really started in second quarter, and that continued into third quarter, and that was going to continue into this paper. So those MLA citation, both the in-text citation and the works cited page, are things that we've been working on all year long. That's why it was so heavy with this paper. Paragraph two, similar process. Paragraph two was all about the summary of your novel, including plot, character, details of the setting, summary. Just, what was the novel about? What were the details? And then again, you could have included a quote from your novel, which would have been very easy. Just open up your book and put some quotes in there that kind of show the example of what you're talking about. So if you were talking about setting, you could have found a quote that describes the setting. That would have been in there. And then the same two requirements. In-text citation is correct. So the author's last name inside the parentheses, and then tag it correctly on your works cited page. So I scrolled down and looked at your works cited page and made sure those tags were identical. And then the process just repeats for positives and negatives. Those next two paragraphs, let me scroll down here correctly. I'm going in the wrong direction. There we go, positives and negatives. I'll talk about them at the same time. So it's just you describing what you thought was good about your novel, and then in the next paragraph, what you thought could have been was probably construed as a little bit of a negative. Some of you were very insightful with your novels and you were very good, but again, you could have included a quote from your book, or for those of you that went and found reviews of your book and you found some other people that were talking about your novel or your author, perfectly fine to incorporate those things there. But you did need both the inclusion of the source information, the in-text citation, and MLA citation. And when I say inclusion of additional source information, that's the quote. That's just the generic way of saying quote from another source. Okay. And that was consistent with both of those, but you needed some kind of quotation, some kind of in-text citation that matched your works cited page. And paragraph 5 was about your personal connection. Personal connection is something that we've emphasized all year long. Just tell me how you are reminded, this novel reminds you of something else going on in your life, whether that's another person, another media, or something that's happening in the world, and then try to bring that back full circle and explain how that helped you understand the novel that you're reading. And then the last few things were just the format of your paper. Did you have the header? The header, that's your name, my name, the class name and hour, and then the due date in the proper form. Did you include the page numbers? Did you have your overall paper organization? So that I was considering like the double spacing, if you had the extra spaces between paragraphs or the extra spacing between the title and the paragraphs, you may have received a few points taken off from that. But that's just the overall appearance. That also includes the works cited page. Did you have that correct in its format? And then finally, in general, the conventions, the spelling, grammar, and word choice. So if you had some lowercase i's, believe it or not, I still had some people with lowercase I, people that were not capitalizing words like America or English or Russia or German. I mean, just simple attention to detail, spelling, grammar, word choice, punctuation, those kinds of things. So again, that rubric has been posted way back on March 16th. I asked people, as you were asking questions about your novel, make sure that you're following the rubric, make sure you're following the rubric. Through the development of this process, that was probably my number one comment back to people, is make sure that you're following the rubric. Lots of you who did the paper, you did an excellent job with your paragraphing, as far as first paragraph was background, second paragraph was summary, third paragraph, fourth paragraph. Like, a lot of you saw that and you did that very, very well, but many of you failed to include quotes. So if you think about that, for every paragraph, that's a significant decrease in your points if you don't include them. So that's where a lot of you were. So whenever you look at your week 2 points and you see that you have 8 out of 10, or maybe even a 7 out of 10, if you did your paper and you did all of your no red ink and you passed your no red ink, then the lowest grade you can get is an 8. Okay, so if you have an 8 and you did all of your other work, it's because you probably did not have your quotes, you didn't have your citations, you didn't have your works cited page, and there may have been some issues with your formatting, so you were in that failing grade for your overall paper. Okay, so please look at your paper first, analyze it, literally sit down with this rubric. It's still available, it's still in your Google Classroom. Sit down with this rubric, sit down with your paper, go through everything, look at my comments, and see if you can kind of see what I was seeing. And then if you have additional questions, then by all means come and ask me. Now, as I finish this, and I know I'm going long here, I apologize for that, but as I finish, some of you really do want to prepare yourself for college, and you are worried about details and you want to make sure that you're technically sound and you're good. For those of you that applies, go ahead and go back and add some quotes and then let me know, and I'll go back and look at your paper. I have no problem going back and adding some points to your week 2 grade because you increased some of your technical aspects of your paper. I have no problem doing that. For those of you who are okay, you just did it, you knew you were playing the game, and you just got your paper done to make sure that you got at least that 7 or 8 points for the week, then great. Leave it as it is. Move on. Um, Understand that I am trying to give you the opportunity. If you want to improve your thing, you can. For those that want to improve your score, go back and do a little bit extra work. Include those quotes. Make sure your works cited page is correct. Make sure your sources are legit. And then let me know whenever you make those improvements, and I will go back and check your grade for accuracy. All right, guys, hopefully that answers your questions. I will have no problem answering those additional questions, but if you're asking me questions of things that I addressed in here, then please understand I may just reply with, hey, make sure you watch the video. Otherwise, I'll talk to you later. Have a great day. Talk to you later. Bye.